welcome back to my channel. I'm Katie. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to be talking about motors in human design. And in short, motors are four of the centers in human design. So we have four of them. They are the sacral, the emotional solar plexus, the root, and the will, which is sometimes called the heart or the ego. So we're going to dive into learning about these four motors, how to use them, what to watch out for, whether you have them defined or open. They're really useful to learn about, and really how to make the most of your energy and avoid burnout. The first ever in-person live workshop I did about human design was for a group of entrepreneurs, and it was all about the motors, because I think when we understand how to use our energy, especially if you own your own business, but really for anybody, it's so useful to know how to make the most impact in your own energy and not burn out, and also how you work with other people's energy around you. Now, working with other people's energy around you isn't limited to just the motors, but in this video, this is what we're going to be talking about. So before we really get into it, I just want to cover one of the basics of what defined, open, and undefined centers are, just to make sure we're all on the same page. I do have another video that goes into the centers, all of them in more detail, so you can check that out on my channel if you're interested in that. But when we're talking about the motors or the centers, if it is colored in, we say it's defined. And if the center is white, it's either undefined or open. So undefined is when there are still gates on the center, and open is when there are no gate activations on the center. And I'm probably going to refer to undefined and open just as open centers, because I tend to talk quickly sometimes, and it's easier to hear defined and open versus undefined and defined. And it's easier to say too. There's a lot of similarities between undefined and open centers. So for this, we're just going to call it the same. The sacral is the most powerful and the only sustainable source of energy of the human design motors. If you have the center or this motor defined, you are either a generator or a manifesting generator. So it's crucial for you to use your strategy of responding, because when you respond to things, that's really what's going to turn this motor on and give you the most energy. And to a degree, because this motor is so powerful, you can do a lot of work and kind of push through a lot of things, even if you don't really want to do them, which, isn't ideal. But this motor really is at its best when you can respond to what lights you up. Because as you respond and when you're excited about doing something, it'll actually give you more energy. And it's really beautiful when you're in the presence of someone who is using their sacral well, who's responding to life, because they have so much good energy. So especially as someone like me who doesn't have the sacral defined, which I guess we can talk about that now, it's really great to be around that sacral energy. One other thing to note about using sacral energy is you don't want to force or push, because that's really against your way of operating. So that's going to deplete your energy really quickly and lead to burnout. And I know sometimes people say, oh, generators, they have all this energy, they can go and go and go. And it's true if they're using their energy correctly. And generators can still get burnt out. So if you're forcing or pushing and trying to make things happen and make things happen on your timeline, it can be helpful to sort of release a little bit, surrender a little bit, use your a strategy of responding, and that will really help you to get your energy back. With generators or with the sacral motor as well, if you have this defined, it is important to make sure you're actually using up your energy every day, because it's kind of the way I think about it is if you have the sacral, it's like you're gifted this set of energy. And when you have this energy, you want to make sure you're using it preferably on stuff that you love, and then going to bed when you're like done, exhausted, battery is empty. And then you sleep because you're really tired, so you get a good night's sleep and you regenerate. So it's like your battery gets full again and you can repeat hopefully forever. So that's an important thought, I think, around using the energy of the sacral. And then one last thing is really around keeping your energy or your aura clean. It's kind of how I like to, or uncluttered maybe is a better way. Because when you, as a sacral being or someone who has this motor, have a lot of obligations or a lot of things that you think you should be doing. Because in your mind, like I said, I did this for entrepreneurs. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're like, oh, I need to do this to be successful, or maybe you're a parent and you're like, I have to do this in order to be a good parent, or I have to do this to be a good daughter, or whatever. The more you do things that you think you should be doing, the more it actually takes up space in your aura. So if we kind of imagine that our aura has like a set amount of space in it, if you're clogging up your aura or cluttering up your aura with all kinds of stuff, then you won't have the space in your aura energetically for new, really wonderful opportunities to come along for you to respond to. So it's good to keep yourself busy with stuff you love doing, but not just for the sake of being busy and not because you think you need to be doing it because someone else has told you so. So it's a good opportunity for sacral types, generators, and manifesting generators to do a little bit of a life audit and see what they're doing that they don't actually need to be doing, to give themselves more space for the stuff that they love, for the stuff that feels good, that really turns on their energy. When we talk about having an open sacral or undefined, like I mentioned earlier, one of the themes is not knowing when enough is enough. And this is a really important part of understanding yourself and understanding the motors, because it's almost like your like low gas or low fuel gauge on your car isn't working, only it's yourself. So you keep going and going and going, because when we have these open centers, we actually take in energy and amplify them. And so there's a really good chance, especially pre-pandemic, when we were out in offices or co-working spaces or coffee shops, that you're going to be around someone who has sacral energy. And so as a non-sacral, you will take it in and amplify it, which is really great sometimes. And I actually do recommend and love using this energy for short periods as someone who doesn't have the sacral motor, but it's not something that's sustainable for you. So you don't want to rely on it for a really long time. When you do, that's going to lead you to burnout because it's the wrong kind of energy in your system. You're not meant to use it all the time. So when you have the open sacral, you want to make sure you're taking breaks, take naps where you physically lie down, like get horizontal. Even for just 20 minutes, I do that all the time and it makes me feel so much better to lie down throughout the day. I set my timer on my phone, so you want to lie down and not be on your phone, not be doing things, actually give yourself time to rest. I'll set the alarm on my phone for like 20 minutes, and usually by minute like 17, I'm like, oh, okay, good, I'm ready to go again. I actually did it before I started filming this video because I was feeling kind of tired and I didn't want to bring that energy here. So getting horizontal, because your body graph actually does change when you lie down, is something that I find really regenerative and great when you have an open sacral to use this energy better to your advantage. So taking breaks, taking naps, meditating, going for walks, that's all helpful. And lastly is really paying attention to the signs that you need a break. As someone with an open sacral or undefined, you tend to get really used to this idea of working in ways that you're not really meant to. Like the typical 9 to 5 is not meant for you if you have an open sacral motor. You're not meant to work like most people, right? You're in the 30% of the population with an open sacral versus the 70%. So you likely are very used to pushing past your cues of needing a break. And whether your cues are like, oh, I need to go to the bathroom, or I need some water, or my eyes are really tired, I need to look away from my computer, or I'm just feeling like really exhausted, I need to go lie down, I need to take a break. When we have this theme of not knowing when enough is enough, we keep going and going and going and going, and that makes us really tired, and that will burn us out pretty quickly. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention. Okay, so let's talk about the root. The root is not a super strong motor. It is a center associated with stress, pressure, adrenaline, drive, all of those things, and the root will pulse. So it has a pulsing energy of going on and off. So what you want to do is, if you have the center defined, when you have this like rush of energy and it's on, use it. And depending on what your root is attached to, like if it's attached to the emotional solar plexus or if it's attached to the spleen, it will change how you feel this a little bit. But if it's attached to the spleen, right timing is really going to impact when you have those energy surges. So if you have that surge of energy, it's a pretty good indication that it is right timing for you to do whatever it is you need to do with this energy. Of course, using your strategy and authority is always important, but when you have the surges of energy from the root, use them. It's good to note that if you have this defined, you likely are always exerting pressure on those with open roots. Whether you intend to or not, you probably don't intend to, you probably aren't even aware of it, especially if you're just learning about human design. But the open root, when you have this center or this motor open, again, you take in and amplify. So you're taking in and amplifying this pressure, this adrenaline, this stress energy. And sometimes for short periods of time, you can really like bang things out and get stuff done. But this motor and this center, when you have it open, it really wants to get things done so that it can take a break. It's just like, hurry up, let's get through this so I can take a break. And it's kind of a false sense because there really is no break. When you have this, you need to create your own boundaries. But when the theme is to hurry up and get things done, you can sometimes rush through things. So if you have this motor open, be aware that you're actually doing the work that you want to be doing, that you're putting your best work out there, and not in a perfectionist, crazy way, but in a way that you're actually doing the work how you want it to be done versus just rushing through it so that you can rest. The will center. Like I mentioned earlier, this is also called the heart or the ego. It is one of the motors, and this is also one where you're going to be in the minority if you have it defined. Most people have this center open. When you have this defined, you're really meant to work to rest. And my teacher likes to give this example of the Tour de France, where you understand that they can't complete that whole thing in one go, right? They're not just like running a sprint. They need to take breaks. And when you have this center defined, it is so important for you to take breaks. And by breaks, I mean like days off. So taking 2 days off a week, like a proper weekend. And the center is kind of well known for fake rest. So you want to make sure you're really resting when you have this. I do have this center defined, and one of the things that I found I used to do was I would take like the weekend. That's not even true. I used to never take any days off ever. But I would think that I was taking time off and I'd be reading like business books or personal development. And that's not really truly rest. It's not really truly regenerative, even though there are activities that I might enjoy. And so what really helped me was to actually experiment with what was restful and what felt good. And I'll give you a hint, scrolling on Instagram is not one of those things, but experience it and explore it with yourself if you have this center of what true rest really is. How do you really like resource yourself, regenerate yourself, and feel like you're replenished again? Because this center can really push. And I used to be a little bit confused about this center. When I saw that I had it, I was like, I do not have willpower. I don't know what this is saying. It says that I have willpower according to human design. That sounds a little bit crazy. Because to me, I think willpower is like sticking to a diet or sticking to an exercise plan or something like that. And that was always something that I had struggled with. But what a big part of this motor and this energy is, I like to think of it, or what makes sense for me to think of it as, is more of like enduring and pushing through. And when I look at that, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see very long periods of my life where I have endured things I really didn't want or really didn't want to be doing, or endured relationships that I didn't want to be in, or jobs that I didn't want to be in. But I just kept going and I just kept going and I just kept going, because this will has the ability to push. So when you have that, you want to check in with yourself. The things that you're doing and the energy that you're using, do you actually want to be doing these things? Pay attention, check in, be true to yourself with it, because it is a great energy to have, but it's kind of one you want to use sparingly. It's not sustainable like the sacral. So it's good to have like little spurts of it, but it really is something that needs a lot of rest. And we all need rest, but with this center specifically, whenever I see a client that has it, I make sure that we have a conversation about them taking 2 days off a week, which they usually are not doing. So if you're not doing that, consider it. See what it's like to actually rest. I find when I do this, I actually am far more productive, not only during the week before, but also the week after, where if I think that I can continue working all weekend because there's something that I'm excited about, I end up crashing pretty hard the week after, and then I'm not productive, which is frustrating. If you have this motor or this center open, you can take this energy in and amplify it. So you can actually take in someone's willpower energy and make it stronger for a little while. It's not going to be sustainable, so it's not something that you want to do all the time, but it is kind of like a fun little extra. I imagine like when you're playing a video game, I don't know, I don't play video games often, but when I was a kid, like Super Mario and stuff like that, and you would, go over like a little something and you'd get like a power boost. And that's kind of what I think of this will center as, that you can get these little like power boosts to, push through a little bit. But again, not something you want to be relying on or use sustainably, because it's not a sustainable center of energy or source of energy, really. So make sure you're taking breaks, figure out what is truly restful and regenerative for you, and do that in your life. The last motor is the solar plexus, the emotional solar plexus. And I'm actually going to do a whole other video on this as your authority, and I have a class on it too. So if you want to learn more, I would recommend checking those out, because I'm not going to go super in depth on this one about the motors. But the emotional solar plexus, it's a mouthful. As you can imagine, it is an emotional center. So the energy of this center is connected to your emotions. There's a few things to really pay attention to if you have this center defined. One is to feel your emotions, because your energy is connected to your emotions. So if you are resisting feeling certain emotions, whether it's happiness, sadness. Some people are really uncomfortable being happy or joyful. Some people are really uncomfortable being angry and sad. Get to know your emotions. Build a relationship with your emotions and how you can express them, because holding in emotions is exhausting. It takes so much energy, and I promise you, you have better things to spend your energy on than keeping your emotions really locked up. So figuring out ways to process them, and I'll talk more about that in the other videos and classes that I mentioned. I'll link those down below so you can find them if you're interested in it. It's also important when you have this center, because it is emotional, it has the emotional waves, meaning that you have emotions that go up and down and up and down, to respect the down periods and the lows. Because again, the more you resist something, the more attention you're actually giving it, and the longer it's going to stay around. Allow yourself to feel low and to process the lows, but not get attached to it, because the less attached we are, usually the quicker that things will go, and the more that we can kind of get back to our regular level of energy. That being said, you do want to have some sort of practice, I think, that will help you maintain good emotional energy. And I want to be so clear that by good emotional energy, I don't mean always feeling happy all the time, because that is not a realistic thing for an emotional being. But what I do mean is that you have reliable things that you do on a regular basis to process your emotions, to feel your emotions, and to raise the frequency of your emotions. And again, I'm not saying good vibes only, because I believe in feeling the whole range of emotions, but raising kind of the base of your up and down, right? Because if we have this line that goes across and we have the ups and downs of the wave, we want to just kind of raise that frequency of the base, so the lows aren't quite so low and the highs can be even higher. And you're still going to have highs and lows. That's part of the emotional wave, and I think it's a really beautiful part of it. But it isn't good to have a practice to be able to process it, to be creative, and to allow yourself to express these emotions. Emotions are energy, right? And this is an energy source. With the emotional solar plexus, I find that most people often have the experience of these emotional surges, or these like creative surges, where, you're just kind of like coming along, doing your thing in life, and you're like, oh, and you could write something, or if you're an artist, you could, create something or whatever. Even if you're an engineer, computer programmer, all of a sudden it's just like this rush of stuff. So use that. When you feel like the words are just flowing out of you, or everything makes sense, or you have these really great ideas and you have this like level of energy that's just coming up through you, capture that somehow. Whether it's like, you're actually creating what you want to be creating, or writing it down somewhere, or making a voice note for yourself, those sort of surges of emotional energy are something that are really important to capture, because it's difficult to go back and try to recreate it once the actual emotion has passed. If you have this center open, or this motor open, one, it means that you truly are empathetic in this world. You take in emotions and you amplify them. So you can also have a similar experience of your energy levels going up and down based on your emotions, but the emotions aren't really your own. So what's important for you is to aside from the fact of noticing the people you're around and the emotions they're giving off and whether you want to be around that. But what's important is to figure out kind of like energetic barriers for yourself and energetic cleansing practices. So ways to empty out the emotional center. And whether that's ranting, rage journaling is one of my favorite practices, whether you're emotionally defined or not. And so for rage journaling, it's what I turn my Wi-Fi off, I open up my laptop, I open up a document on my laptop, and I just like hammer away at the keyboard and get all of the things out, all of the angry thoughts, all of the sad thoughts, whatever. I just get it out, get it out, get it out, get it out, get it out. And usually I'll get to a point where I'm just like, okay, I'm good. So whether you're defined or not, I think that's a great practice. But it's important when you have this center open to have some kind of emptying out practice. And whether, you like shaking and dancing to get the energy out, or jumping up and down, or like big sighs, there's so many ways to process your energy. But emptying the energy out, cleansing out the system, getting the energy that's not yours out is going to get you back to your kind of base level so that you can use your emotion, or you can use your regular energy clearly without it being so affected by emotional energy. And that being said, I think it's also great to take in some of that emotional energy sometimes and to use it, but it is not yours. It's not how really you're meant to work and to process things all the time. So it's kind of like fun little bits of extra energy you can get here and there, but you don't want to be relying on it. Okay, so comment below and let me know, what motors do you have? You may have none defined, and you may have all of them defined, or any combination of the four. So let me know what motors you have. Let me know what your experiences of your motors are like. Do you resonate with anything that I shared just now? And I think I'm gonna end it there because I really could keep talking about this for a long time, but I wanna try and keep this short. Okay, so now that we're done, head to sortofspiritual.com/motors. I made a free little cheat sheet for you all about the motors and how to best use the energy in each of the four motors. If you do want to learn more, head to my website. I am creating new classes and new courses for you to check out, and I'll have those linked below when they're ready for you. If you like this, if you found this helpful, like the video, give me a subscribe. I'm still growing and I want to create lots more for you. I so appreciate you being here and you watching and you commenting and sharing everything that human design means to you. So thank you, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.